jab, uppercut, leave you laid out on the floor. Try to duck and roll, hit and miss, now you counting stars. Should've practiced more, should've hit the mask, get out there more. Man, that you're the best. You gotta show me, son. Actions over words, baby boy. Is you real or what? Talking way too much, world come. Back sports, talking way too much, world come. Back sports, talking way too much, world come. Back
that was vacated to him from you. That's your belt. And he's a fantastic fighter, extremely skillful. Everybody know what kind of fighter he is. Boxing works like this. Let's say you're willing to fight for $500,000. Fighter A is a great fighter that you have to try for $500,000. Fighter B is a fighter you'll beat easily for $500,000. Who you choose to fight lets the people know what you're made of. Most fighters in boxing are advised to fight fighter B, who you can look good against for the same amount of money. So then when they choose fighter B, they still want to be given their respect though, because they know in their heart when they look in the mirror that they avoided fighter A. So they rely on their fanboys to have their back no matter what. Everybody know you should have fought fighter A. Fighter A, Boots, will make him 3-time undisputed. Chris Eubank has no belts. Got whipped by lesser fighters, don't deserve the fight. Boots does though. He was mandatory, #1 contender at welterweight, has an IBF title that was vacated to him from you. That's your belt. And he's a fantastic fighter, extremely skillful. Everybody know what kind of fighter he is. Boxing works like this. Let's say you're willing to fight for $500,000. Fighter A A is a great fighter that you have to try for $500,000. Fighter B is a fighter you'll beat easily for $500,000. Who you choose to fight lets the people know what you're made of. Most fighters in boxing are advised to fight fighter B, who you can look good against for the same amount of money. So then when they choose fighter B, they still want to be given their respect though, because they know in their heart when they look in the mirror that they avoided fighter A. So they rely on their fanboys to have their back no matter what. Everybody know you should have fought fighter A. Fighter A, Boots, will make him 3-time undisputed. Chris Eubank has no belts. Got whipped by lesser fighters, don't deserve the fight. Boots does though. He was mandatory, #1 contender at welterweight, has an IBF title that was vacated to him from you. That's your belt. And he's a fantastic fighter, extremely skillful. Everybody know what kind of fighter he is. Boxing works like
So listen up. All right. Showbizz the adult, that was who was dropping that clip. His subscription to basically put this clip out there was to itemize it is fighter A, fighter B. Fighter A being Jaron Ennis, fighter B being Eubanks Jr. All right? We pretty much understand and are fully aware who both of these fighters are, do we not? So, with that being said, we understand that Jaron Ennis and what his record consists of. We've been down that road. In case you don't know, you know what I'm saying, what exit we took and what was on that exit when we decided to put on our blinker and get off of that exit, it was exit 31, okay? He's 31 victories, 0 defeats, and 28 knockouts. All right? You heard Showbizz say that fighter A will be the tougher opposition. Fighter B, the lesser opposition, in so many words. You know? And you're listening to this, I say, first of all, you're highlighting Jaron Ennis as fighter A. That's very, very unique based off how he actually obtained his title. But you put that in there as him having a title and potentially Crawford fighting him to get more money. Who basically determined that he will make more money fighting Jaron Ennis than he would Chris Eubanks Jr.? Who determined that? When you put clips out here and you have an editing team, I totally get it, bro. This is no knock on that, but your editing team could have dressed it up even nicer. But when you said Eubanks Jr. has lost to lesser opponents, let's get this straight. Let's get this straight. You consider Eubanks Jr. a lesser fighter than Jaron Ennis? Let me get this straight there, Showbizz. You're telling the world that you consider Jaron Ennis a higher level fighter than Eubanks Jr.? And he received his title administratively? You're trying to convince the public that if you're going to split them in half, dichotomize and put one on one side, one on the other, you're saying that A, just because Crawford can fight Jaron Ennis in his weight class and become 3-time undisputed, the value of that fight outweighs who Chris Eubanks has been able to fight in his entire career? Chris Eubanks' resume, Jaron Ennis can't touch. Point blank, period. You know how many former world champions Eubanks have fought? Do you know how many times he's fought and won the interim championship? Right? Do you know the names that he's fought that stepped in there with Canelo Alvarez, i.e. Liam Smith, i.e. Billy Joe Saunders? Do you know? When you say that Chris Eubanks Jr. has lost the lower tier opposition, brother, I have to ask you, what the heck are you talking about? He's lost the lower tier opposition. Jerron Ennis's entire resume is based off lower tier opposition. What are you saying exactly? This man Ennis haven't been in there with the opponents that have stepped in there and fought the likes of Gennady Golovkin. What are you saying exactly, bro? I'm just asking this. Did you ever look at the box rec before you actually put this video out there? You're trying to say that Terrence Crawford will get more highlight to his career going in there and beating a fighter who hasn't proven themselves yet. And on paper, it shows every descriptive piece of evidence that I am telling you without me even breaking it down line for line, that Jerron Ennis's resume isn't better than Chris Eubanks. I don't know if y'all look at Eubanks because of his personality, his arrogance, or whatever the case may be, but his first time ever being stopped was not too long ago last year. We all seen that. Before that, he only had 2 losses. Those from George Groves and Billy Joe Saunders. What are you talking about losing to lower tier opposition, brother? What are you trying to convince the people about? I know it's Showbizz the entertainer, but you're entertaining. You're writing a script. You're not really basing this off the reality of what's on the paperwork. The paperwork tells people that Jerron Ennis hasn't came close to having a Billy Joe Saunders on his record. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't even have, came close to having an Arthur Abraham on his record now. He doesn't even have a James DeGale on his record, Showbizz. He doesn't even have a Liam Smith on his resume, bro. I'm not trying to figure this out. It's not for me to figure it out. It is so easily and well, you know what I'm saying, organized. You know what I'm saying? It's so readable. It's so easy that this statement, this video that you put out there has absolutely no merit to whatever the point you was trying to make to prove that Crawford and trying to suggest that his fanboys will convince him that if he fought Eubanks, that would be the lower tier opposition, and therefore his fanboys, he will look to his fanboys, which Crawford never do now. Crawford will tell you, hey, he never got credit. They always treat him as an underdog. So I never really thought that he looked to his fans for validation. That makes no sense at all. Crawford never looked to his fans for validation. He looked for himself for validation. When he was in the club, he used those who's around him, getting him ready for the fight, and his own self-driven motivation is hunger. All this other stuff that he's looking to his fanboys to basically give him validation for fighting a lower tier opposition, which you're saying was Chris Eubanks. And with that said, for Chris Eubanks, you're saying that he wants to get the same type of recognition and glory as he would fighting an A fighter A, which you're considering to be Jerron Ennis? Is that what you said, brother? You're saying Crawford fans are looking, Crawford is looking to his fanboys to give him validation for getting a win over Chris Eubanks Jr., who you deem fighter B, the lower tier, the lesser tier opposition, to give him credit as if he faced and beat fighter A, when you have both of the fighters in the wrong position to begin with. Eubanks should be A, and Jerron Ennis should be C. He hasn't fought the opposition that Eubanks have fought. People may look at Crawford fighting Eubanks, and I can guarantee you this. They're going to look at the box rec the same way I am after this live or doing this live, and they're going to do their homework. You know what I'm saying? It's easy. It's easy to do your homework. But to put out a clip like that, it's extremely misleading. It's no hate intended, but this is extremely a misleading clip because somehow, some way, you're trying to bolster Jerron Ennis without him actually earning it. His resume doesn't come close to Chris Eubanks Jr., nor has he stepped in the ring and answered the bell to the former champions that Eubanks have faced inside that square, point blank, period. Point blank, period. Yes, he has been an interim IBF champion, and he has picked up the IBF champion without facing an opponent. Yes, Chris Eubanks has been in there to fight for the championship and lost against George Groves. You know what I'm saying? But to say this man has lost to the lower tier opposition is frivolous there, Showbiz. It's frivolous information, bro. You have a platform to spread the gospel that counts. You know what I'm saying? I know the Bible is written by man. But what you're doing, you're distorting the obvious truth. You consider yourself to be a diehard fan. You're going on all these other platforms. You know what I'm saying? People know who you are. But why haven't they spoke on this clip that you put out that is fallacy? It makes no sense at all that you would attempt to put Jaron Ennis as the A fighter who Crawford is going to make more money against just because it's going to be 3-time undisputed and it's your belt. Well, guess what? Isn't any belt somebody else's belt? Huh? Why aren't you up here telling Crawford he need to give Spence another chance no matter what? You know what I'm saying? No matter what it is, he need to wait on Spence because the WBC, the WBA, and the IBF was Spence's belt before. You know what I'm saying? So he should wait on Spence regardless of the cataracts, and he should get him a second shot. It's only right. But no, you're telling the people that Crawford should fight Jaron Ennis, who has Terrence Crawford's belt, and you don't tell the people in this clip how he got the belt. And then if he would have earned the belt, then maybe you would have had just a smidgen more of justification as to putting this clip out there to say, you know what, the way he beat so-and-so for this belt. Because if he would have earned that belt in the ring, guess what? He would have had more than the IBF. Right there, Showbiz? He would have had what? The WBC. What? WBA. What? The WBO. So we can't even break this scenario off to clean it up even, to clean it up even more, to pretty much give Jaron Ennis a breath of fresh air to say he earned that IBF because Crawford had all the belts. But you're telling the people Crawford should fight Jaron Ennis. And by the way, that's your belt, ain't it? So it's okay for somebody to send paperwork in and have a fighter stripped and then turn around and tell the fighter who earned the belt in the ring by beating a pound-for-pound fighter there, Showbiz, that he should go chase something that was taken from him. It's not the same as walking on the street and somebody take your wallet, Showbiz. It's not the same. This is much different. This is what they had planned. You see all these other fighters out here, and they're not really pressing for them to fight their mandatories. But in this particular case, you want to put out a Terrence Crawford fanboys that he will look to the fanboys for validation by fighting Chris Eubanks, who you deem fighter B, the lower tier opposition, when that has never happened. I never really saw him as that fighter, period. So basically you placing a stigma as if Terrence Crawford doesn't have the confidence to step up there and fight the fighters that's the higher tier fighters, which he just did, Showbiz. He just stepped in there and fought Errol Spence Jr., who was on the pound for pound list. You made absolutely no sense, bro. You absolutely made no sense in this dang this clip that you put out. And I watch Showbiz content sometime. I look at it as being entertainment because he'll switch up at any given time. But Showbiz also, if you want to put it out there and for people to respect that you putting out information that makes sense, there's no way possible you can come in here and click the link and me and you have a dialogue about boxing and you can prove to me that the clip you put out makes sense. There's no way in hell you're going to convince anybody in this chat that the clip you put out makes goddamn boxing sense. It makes every sense in the world when it comes to boxing. Crawford beating Jaron Ennis and becoming 3-time undisputed will not maximize its value when it comes to him receiving his flowers for beating a fighter whose resume consisted of him receiving that belt via paperwork instead of going into the ring and answering the bell. That's fact, showbiz, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, brother. You know, this is what I'm talking about with people who just listen to something and they're not really paying attention. And, you know, if it's edited right with some music on there. But this is one of the most bogus videos that's out there trying to highlight Jaron Ennis as being fighter A, which he haven't even pretty much earned that spot to be fighter A. When is he supposed to defend his title? I know he has Cody Crowley. But how many former world champions in his division has he fought? How many former world champions has he fought, period? Oh, Sergey. Okay, he fought Sergey Lipinets, who was beat by Mikey Garcia. Kudos. But on the level of former champions that Chris Eubanks has fought, explain to me, how can this even remotely be true? What he's talking about. How? How can we find the Arthur Abraham on there? How can we find a James DeGale on there? How can we find a 2-division champion at 160, 168 and Billy Joe Saunders on his resume? Where are these guys at? Where are these guys? Didn't Liam Smith step in the ring with Canelo? Haven't Billy Joe Saunders stepped in the ring with Canelo? Where's all these fighters? Real talk, where are all these fighters? Seriously. Okay, let's dig a little deeper with the shovel. Let's say Thomas Delorme. You know, the same Thomas Delorme who was coming off 2 losses when he stepped in there and freaking Jaron Ennis. Do he get credit? Do you want me to break that down? Does that count in this particular clip where he stepped in there with Thomas Delorme, who Terrence Crawford beat for a vacant title back in the day? Does that count? Seriously, does it count if he was coming off 2 victories, or are you giving him credit? Are you giving him that credit that he stepped in there with Crawford? Because I know that'll be a little bit more conflicting, wouldn't it, Showbiz? If you kind of gave Crawford credit for beating Thomas Delorme, so that would kind of debunk what you're trying to say about Crawford and Jaron Ennis, right? Who gets credit for that? Crawford fought him for a vacant title, and Jaron Ennis fought him coming off two losses and stopped him in the first round. I mean, why you didn't insert that in the clip? Let's listen to this one more time. Let's just listen to it just one more time now.
Like this. Let's say you're willing to fight for $500,000. Fighter A is a great fighter that you have to try for $500,000. Fighter B is a fighter you'll beat easily for $500,000.
He said, fighter A, you fight for $500,000, you have to try. He's proclaiming that fighter A, Jaron Ennis, Crawford will have to try. He will have to try harder to beat for $500. You know what I'm saying? He will have to try. And first of all, I had to check the audio. It's a lot of AI going on, but it was determined that was Showbizz's voice. He called Jaron Ennis a great fighter. Hey, no knock on Jaron Ennis, but check this out. All I'm saying, people, the boxing community is not the way we would expect us to basically treat adults in life. You know what I'm saying? Age appropriation when you're having a conversation. We are expected to know certain things, right? We expected to know and figure out and troubleshoot certain things. So right now, I'm troubleshooting. I'm dissecting this clip. That's exactly what I'm doing. And words are everything. So being that we are fairly older in life, he said, great. When it comes to the sport of boxing, how dare you place Jaron Ennis in the term of greatness? How dare you do that with your experience and your platform, say that he's a great fighter? Who did he beat to be a great fighter? Thomas Delorme, who fought Terrence Crawford back in the day? Who did he beat? You're going to get Sergey Lipinets? Who did Jaron Ennis beat? For you to absolutely try to tie this in to Crawford being a fighter that lacks confidence and has to look to his fans for validation by supposedly fighting a lower tier fighter, which you call fighter B, Chris Eubanks, to give him the same amount of glory that he would get if he fought Jaron Ennis, when Jaron Ennis' resume doesn't add up at all. No matter how you tab it, no matter how many people you get to review it, his resume don't add up to Chris Eubanks. Why would you put some info? Why would you put this damn media stuff out there, bro? Why would you do that? It makes no sense, Showbiz. You better than this, man. You better than this. You can't put no trash out there like this, and makes no sense trying to say that fighter A is a great fighter. You fight it for $500 and the fighter will have to try. He will have to try. And then you have fighter B, you're getting paid $500,000 and you'll pretty much have to do less work to beat fighter B. When fighter B in WCS's reality has a better resume than fighter A. Fighter A hasn't been in there with the competition, you know, that fighter B, for which you're proclaiming fighter B, has not done in his entire career. Not to mention, you say fighter B has been beat by lesser competition. Then what the hell is fighter A fought in his career? Explain that. Who are you gonna start with? Sergey Lipinets? Who are you gonna begin with? Thomas Delorme? Who are you gonna begin? Where do you start to prove this point? Where do you start, Showbiz? It's nothing that you can listen from start to finish. And what I'm telling you about this freaking clip, that is absolute garbage. I'm not saying your channel garbage. I'm not saying you garbage, brother. It's nothing personal. I'm saying this clip you put out is trash.
Who you choose to fight lets the people know what you're made of.
Who you choose to fight, let the people know what you made of. Take this for example, Showbiz. You don't know who I am, okay? Which you do. You're saying a fighter, who you choose to fight, show the people what you're made of. What about who you haven't fought? What does that do? Does it show you or show the fans what you're not made of if you ain't fought nobody? What about who you haven't fought there, Showbiz? Why don't you put that out there? Who hasn't he fought? You're talking about Jaron Ennis been a great fighter, and you're talking about who has he fought, Vice, who he has not fought. Who has he not fought? How do you validate what you just said when it comes to Ennis, and he has not fought anybody of higher tier recognition, but you're trying to say he's fighter A and Crawford will be deemed officially certified and given all the damn confirmation he needs if he go and fight a fighter whose resume is subpar comparable to the fighter that you're saying fighter B, who's fought less opposition and lost? How does that work when it makes no sense? Obviously, the fighters that Chris Eubanks have fought and lost to, Jaron Ennis can't even touch. He doesn't have those names on his resume. He may never get those names on his resume. He does not have it on his resume, Showbiz. I'm curious to how you even said this with a straight face.
Most fighters in boxing are advised to fight fighter B.
Most fighters in boxing are advised to fight fighter B. In this case, he's deeming Chris Eubanks as fighter B, which Jaron Ennis should be fighter C. There should be no fighter B in this equation because Jaron Ennis's resume don't add up to fighter A. Fighter A would be Chris Eubanks Jr. I'm hoping I'm not confusing y'all, but if you listen to this, you may be confused already. So I'm here to try to goddamn spray some Windex on here to kind of clean the window so you can see right through it. Jaron Ennis can't be fighter B. To be fighter B, you have to at least have the paperwork to put you in the same class of that fighter. Jaron Ennis is not in the class of a Eubanks Jr. Just because he was knocked out by Liam Smith, who's been in there with Saul Canelo Alvarez. Liam Smith ain't no punk. He ain't a bum.
Who you can look good against for the same amount of money. So then when they choose fighter B, they still want to be given their respect though.
When you choose fighter B, they still want to be given their respect. So fighter B, once again, I clarify, fighter B in his scenario is Chris Eubanks Jr. They still want to be respected. This is what he's saying. Crawford still wants to be respected for stepping in there with a lower tier opposition and putting in less work and getting the win, and they still want to be respected. What about the fighter that you're talking about in Crawford? He was already respected prior to stepping in there with Chris Eubanks Jr. He was already setting the bar before he stepped in there with Chris Eubanks Jr. You can't sit up here and deem this necessary for the boxing community, Showbiz. It is absolutely irrelevant to the boxing community. The scenario that you was trying to make, the comparison you was trying to make, is one of the worst ever that you did since your channel has been open. And look, I know you switch it up. You'll go for one person and then you turn back around and switch it up without a shadow of a doubt. It's entertainment. I get it. It's no hate here. But this is trash. Dumpster trash. Dumpster juice trash. Because none of it makes sense from start to finish. The only thing makes sense in this freaking clip is the music. That's it. That is it. This fighter A and B comparison, trash. You can't put Jaron Ennis in between your lips and say that's a great fighter. And fighter A, you fight for 500. He's considered a great fighter. Great where? Great when? Great how? Great to who? He hasn't got there yet. He's still young in the game, man. This man can go on to do, very good things and become great in his career. But how can you turn around and say Crawford fanboys and you just basically coming off as a semi-hater when you're not recognizing that Crawford is the greatness in this entire equation, but you're trying to treat him like he's subordinate, like he's in a position of inferiority when he's a three-weight world champion and he's already set the bar to become the first to become two-time undisputed. How can you even put him in a scenario with Jaron Ennis and he can't even sniff the greatness of Terrence Crawford from a distance? He can't even sniff the greatness, bro, in comparison to what his resume says about him. His senses can't even allow him to sniff the greatness on what Crawford's been able to accomplish and how many championships he's won, how many champions he's beat. July 29, 2023, pound for pound fighter. We're not even 10 to 12 months removed from that massacre. And already you're putting out content trying to dilute what he did and trying to say, oh, well, if he fights fighter A for 500,000, it would be much more to his freaking boxing accolades. It will be much more value if he goes and fight for a belt that Jaron Ennis never extracted from him properly inside the ring to begin with. And also, you're basically co-signing off sanctioning bodies such as the IBF to go up here and submit administrative paperwork to have him stripped of a belt as if you respect that type of belt collection. You respect a fighter getting a belt like that to be deemed a champion at Showbiz? There's no way in hell that I'm going to agree with that. I'm not even going to say you are agreeing to it like that. I'm not even going to say you agree to it. I think you put this out It's just a freebie. You just put this out for controversy. That's why I don't feel no type of way about it. I'm just letting you know it's simply trash all the which way from start to finish. Because there's no way Jerron Ennis in this era, and you still have people on here on this YouTube with pretty decent hearing, to listen to you deem Jerron Ennis as a great fighter. If he was a great fighter, Crawford wouldn't be fighting him for 500 grand in that Showbiz. That's why this A and B comparison is trash. Just because he's stepping in there with Eubanks Jr., a 2 weight class higher, and he already, pretty much put out an accolade of coming the first 2-time undisputed. You're going to compare Chris Eubanks in an A and B scenario to Jerron Ennis. Jerron Ennis doesn't even sniff Chris Eubanks' resume right now on the fighters that he's been in there with, that's been in there with other champions. Come on, man. Come on, this is funny. It's entertainment. And once again, man, this is no hate, no disdain, none of that shit. But there's no way you're going to ever prove to me, if you click the link right now, you're going to prove to me that what you said make any sense whatsoever. And we can start by you saying that Jerron Ennis is a great fighter. You're going to have to prove that to the listeners, that you can look at his box rec and start from the bottom, not the top. Started from the bottom, now we're here. You got to start from the bottom and get to a point where Jerron Ennis start to switch it up and fight fighters that's going to basically solidify who he is as a fighter when you say he's great. Where do you start from the bottom and work your way up the ladder to say, yes, this fighter right here is one of his best fights ever. You're not going to do it. You're not going to do it. It's not going to start with Urabov. It's not going to start with freaking Van Heerden from a headbutt. It's not going to start from Delorme, Clayton. It's not going to find with Lipinets. It's not going to start from freaking Roman Villa, Korean Chudikin, none of that. You're going to be trying to stroll up the page even more and more, and it's going to be it. You're going to be at the top of the list. And you can say, well, WCS, don't take it so harsh. So I was just putting out some content. That's all it was. And I get it. I'm just letting you know it's one of your worst pieces of content you put out here to date. It makes no sense. You're just trying to bolster, somebody to believe that Crawford fighting Eubanks when you are up here trying to sell. You're trying to sell a comp ticket to sit up near the AC units and make it seem like it's a floor seat. Nobody should even be believing this, even if it's for free there, Showbiz. You can't goddamn put Jerron Ennis up there as fighter A, and Crawford, just because he beats Jerron Ennis, which is contradicting in itself, because Jerron Ennis has not been in the ring with the competition to validate that he should get a shot at Crawford. Just because you're basically hanging out and you're a tenant in the 147-pound division doesn't mean Crawford should turn to you and say, you know what, just because we're in the same neighborhood, you get first dibs. I should give you first dibs because we're in the same division. No, he's just a tenant, just like Crawford was a tenant when he picked up the WBO title. And then he worked his way up, because the only 2 names that was up there at the time, when it used to be one-time Thurman, is soon to be Errol Spence Jr. And then as months and months and months passed by, then it was consummated and the contract was made. And we had 2 pound-for-pound fighters. When has Jerron Ennis been close to the pound-for-pound list like that? Their Showbiz. When he extracted that IBF title from Crawford, I didn't hear you say in the clip that he should have fought for it. You said Crawford should go get his belt. So is that where we at right now? Somebody can get somebody stripped of a title and they're supposed to be chasing. They're supposed to chase down the person for a title that they already earned in the ring by fighting a pound-for-pound best? a pound for pound best? You want this man to go chasing behind and go try to run down his title, which he never lost. He never lost it, brother. What are you talking about?
Because they know in their heart when they look in the mirror that they avoided fighter A. So
they know in their hearts when they look in the mirror, they avoided fighter A. First of all, it's no avoidance. When you get to the level that Crawford is at, he can make the same decisions as any other fighter that's got it what? The hard way. Crawford has pretty much earned it. You feel me? Crawford has earned his spot the hard way to get up to where he need to be. He's earned it. Why does he need to look in the mirror for anything? He's earned it the hard way. He don't need to look in the mirror for nothing unless he's looking at himself and patting himself on the freaking chest, you know, beating himself on the chest and patting his back and say, hey, you did the damn thing. I'm proud of you, man. You did it the right way. Can't nobody say that Crawford submitted paperwork to a sanctioning body because he wanted to be a world champion, and it came up and knew damn well it was going to be a dead end request, and they was going to get the belt that way anyway. Nobody can say Crawford did that. How many draws do Crawford have on his resume?
So they rely on their fanboys to have their back no matter what.
They rely on fanboys to have their back no matter what. Well, guess what? That's what a fanboy is, right? A fan of the fighter. So if you want to call them a fanboy or a fangirl, they're still a fan of the fighter. Without the fans who are consumers of the fighters, their showbiz, you don't have money and revenue. If nobody showed up to the fight, how would these fighters be generating wealth? How would they be negotiating purses if they have no freaking history? If they're not even considered a commodity, their appraising value as a fighter is low. How do their appraising value increase? Because of consumers, because of the fanboys. Y'all trying to make fanboys seem like a bad thing. Fanboys are the one that put forth the time and effort to support the fighter heavy, and they're willing to actually pay for the pay-per-views. Some of even the content creators, they act like they supporting, but they're on a fire stick streaming. They're not even supporting their favorite fighters because they feel it's no way that I'm going to use my super chat money and sit up here and pay for a pay-per-view. I'm not going to pay. No, I'm going to get them all, and so I can be able to put out content and get more super chat money. You know what I'm saying? This is crazy. This is crazy. Nobody's looking in the freaking mirror for this shit.
Everybody know you should have fought fighter A. Fighter A, Boots, will make him 3-time undisputed.
Fighter A Boots will make him 3-time undisputed. Like Crawford ain't received enough criticism as we know it today. This man has been drowned in criticism for pretty much getting it the hard way. And you want him to go up here and become 3-time undisputed for Boots so they can sit up here and criticize and put an asterisk by that and turn their back on Boots to say he was undeveloped. He hasn't really fought anybody in comparison to Crawford's resume. There's no common opponents that sits on his resume and his body of work right now that Crawford has even fought. That was the level of Errol Spence. Is there any type of comparable opposition that he can fight, that he can debate, that anyone can debate, that's on his resume that you can tie into Crawford? Because when Crawford was trying to fight Errol Spence, they say he hadn't fought no common opponents because Errol Spence can beat everybody on his resume. But guess what? Bing! When he does it, they come up with all these freaking excuses. When Errol Spence fought Kell Brook, he was broken. But yet they say he was even more broken when Terrence Crawford fought him. Gave him no credit. He retires Sean Porter and drops him and stops him, and nobody else has done that. Who does Jaron Ennis get compared to? Where's his opponent that you can compare? You can't take Thomas Delorme just based off what's on paper. No, I'm talking about the credibility aspect of it. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about the credibility of this. We're talking about the boxing FICO score. We're talking about what they did in the past. Who on his resume? We're not talking about a fighter who's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. Who can we put up there? Where are the champions? Where are the pound-for-pound fighters? Where are all these guys? Where are all the champions that he was fighting? You know what I'm saying? Where? Where are all these names that's supposed to put him in the same conversation as Crawford? The only way that Boots can be in the same conversation as Crawford is that people see them in the ranking system and they check out the 147-pound division and they say, oh, the IBF world champion is Jaron Ennis. Oh, okay. Besides that, there's no way that you can even bring up what he's talking about. No way. Fighter A, a great fighter. You can fight for 500,000, but you're going to have to try. Other than Fighter B, a lower tier, a lesser tier fighter, you fight. And Chris Eubanks, who has a better, more competitive resume than Ennis, who's been in there with the big names.
Chris Eubank has no belts. Got whipped by lesser fighters. Don't deserve the fight. Boop.
He said Chris Eubanks been whooped by lesser fighters. Let's itemize these analytics, right? Let's get this intel and data correct, Showbiz. You say this man has been whooped by lesser fighters. Is that what you said? Is that what you said? Chris Eubanks have been whooped by lesser fighters, and he doesn't deserve a shot with Crawford because he doesn't have a belt. So you're sitting up here telling me that you're co-signing the method for which Jaron Ennis received that belt, and you call yourself a hardcore boxing fan? You're going to co-sign on somebody getting with their people to send paperwork, knowing that a fighter is locked in contractually with a fighter that was pound for pound that he just beat fair and square and stopped him. You respect that method for which he submitted paperwork to steal a belt from a fighter who earned it the right way, Showbiz? Is that what you're trying to convince the public?
It does, though. He was mandatory. Number 1 contender at welterweight. Has an IBF title. That was vacated to him from you. That's your belt. And he
It was vacated from him, from you. See, people, they get fast talkers and all this damn other special effects going on. People are skim readers to begin with. They don't like reading more than 3 lines of anything. But also they're becoming dense listeners too. They're not even paying attention to the actual words. They just listen to the sounds and the effects and everything else. Did you say vacated? Did you say vacated? Now you're not being truthful. You're trying to say it was vacated? No, what Jamel Charlo did was vacate. You're trying to say he vacated? Now you're adding things. You're inserting information in there that's misleading.
He's a fantastic fighter, extremely skillful. Everybody knows what kind of fighter he is. Boxing works like this. Let's say you're willing to fight $100,000. Fighter A is a great fighter that you have to try for $500,000. Fighter B is a fighter you'll beat easily for $500,000. Who you choose to fight lets the people know what you're made of. Most fighters in boxing are advised to fight fighter B, who you can look good against for the same amount of money. So then when they choose fighter B, they still want to be given their respect though, because they know in their heart when they look in the mirror that they avoided fighter A. So they rely on their fanboys to have their back no matter what. Everybody know you should have fought fighter A. Fighter A, Boots, will make him 3-time undisputed. Chris Eubank has no belts. Got whipped by lesser fighters. Don't deserve the fight. Boots does though. He was mandatory. Number 1 contender at welterweight. Has an IBF title. That was vacated.
He's telling Crawford that IBF belt was vacated. You hear what I'm saying? He's looking in the camera. Showbiz, you're looking in the camera. This is beyond agitprop. Beyond. This is beyond agitprop. Now you're unwilling to highlight the areas of concern that will put Boots in a true light. Not he don't have to look in the mirror. It'll put him in a true light. That's him having a one-on-one with himself. If Jerron Ennis listened to you put this clip out, he will have questions about why did you put him in this scenario and make him look a certain way. He will not sit up here and clap his hands and say, yeah, I appreciate that Showbizz doing it, because it's a lie. He's the mandatory. He's the number one. He has the IBF title for which you vacated to him. The title wasn't vacated, Showbizz. You know that. And then at the end, he said, now Crawford fans have to fend this shitty fight. No, what Crawford fans have to do is listen to this shitty clip. This is a shitty, bogus clip, misleading, and it's nothing but strict, pure, unadulterated agitprop. You're putting out information to try to convince whoever, the casual boxing fan, the temporary boxing fan, that somehow, once again, Crawford has did something incorrect without him having any liable participation. They submitted a letter to him when he was locked in contractual dispense. And you expect him to do what exactly? What? They sent him a letter, a dead-end letter, knowing damn well he could not meet that request that you put in? He could not fulfill that obligation, so the belt was stripped and given to Ennis, and now you're up here trying to praise Ennis? Why didn't you say Ennis should have looked in the mirror and say, you know, it would be wrong for me to submit that letter or encourage them to submit that letter, knowing that I didn't fight nobody for this IBF title? Not to take the title, strip it from Crawford, who earned it the way he's supposed to from a pound-for-pound fighter. He earned it inside the ring in Vegas in the T-Mobile Arena, a place and a moment which Jerron Ennis have not yet experienced in his life yet. He hasn't experienced that joy. He hasn't experienced that glory for which you talk about, Showbizz. He hasn't experienced it, brother. So what are you putting out here? What is this about? What is this about? You know every bit of this clip is toilet water. You know it. I know it. And anyone with a sound boxing mind know it. I'm not taking shots at you, my brother. But this right here, yeah, Showbizz the entertain. You know what I'm saying? Showbizz the adult entertainment. You're entertaining people. But this clip right here where you're going to put Crawford fans have to defend this shitty fight. How is this fight shitty? How is it shitty? This man is coming off a rematch win. How is it shitty? Crawford's moving up 2 divisions. How is it shitty? You're saying he's lost the lower tier opposition, which is absolutely incorrect and untrue. How is it shitty? It's the truth. Just because you have an editing team that you can talk fast and put something out there and you believe the people's not listening? This is BS, bro. And once again, I'm not mad about it. I'm just telling you, I'm giving you the hot grease, Showbizz. You know what I'm saying? I'm just putting you in the hot grease because you need to be cooked on this for various reasons. Nobody's going to listen to this and say, you know what, he makes sense. He makes sense. Yeah, you know, he a great fighter. Who is deeming Jerron Ennis a great fighter? Who, brother? You? How can he be fighter A? How can he be fighter A? What championship has he won in the ring?
Belt. And he's a fantastic fighter, extremely skillful. Everybody know what kind of fighter he is. Boxing works.
He's a talented fighter, extremely skillful. Let me see. Are you talking about Terrence Crawford in that equation? Because Terrence Crawford has proven that he's extremely skillful in there with elite competition. Isn't that how you prove that you're extremely skillful? Or you should fight lower tier opposition and shine on them and make yourself look like you're supposed to look. Now, from the hardcore fight fans that I know, they wouldn't co-sign ever on that type of information or videography that they're looking at. You know what I'm saying? They wouldn't look at a video and say, man, I know the person that was filming that fight. They enjoyed that because that was a hell of a fight. Jerron Ennis fought somebody straight out the YMCA. Wow. I wonder was he a goddamn a grocery bagger. You know what I'm saying? They bag groceries. They stock shelves. Man, he knocked them out in one round, man. Wow, what a fight. No, I don't think they're doing that. It's no way in hell they're doing that, brother. What you're basically doing is you're trying to convince your audience that the way you're shitting on Crawford is different. You're going to shit on Crawford by putting out false information. And you're trying to put out some misleading propaganda, and hopefully nobody's not really paying attention to what you're saying. You're saying he's going to look to his fans for validation for fighting a lower tier opposition, rather than going in there fighting fighter A, who is the lower tier opposition. And any smart person, intellectually inclined, and they study boxing for a length of period that they've been to fights and they've did enough film study, they would truly understand and tell you and correct you. Say, hey, what would I be if I don't correct you, Showbiz? What you said right here doesn't make any sense. Today, yesterday, the week before that, or currently, or if I'm prognosticating or forecasting anything in the near future, this won't make any sense. It doesn't add up at this time. It doesn't add up, and there's no way for it to possibly add up. You know why? Because Crawford will be already out the sport by the time you want to put this whole freaking scenario together again. How do we stamp the approval? How does a fighter become a prize fighter? How does that work? Crawford fans have to defend this shitty fight. Hey, the fans of Crawford, I don't think we have to defend anything. The man is in a position to make those decisions on who he wants to fight. He's in a position, he's earned it. Nobody submitted paperwork for him to get receive the belts administratively for 3 divisions. Nobody submitted paperwork, and Crawford sat back there and said, that's the way I want to become champion. Work smarter, not harder. It's unbelievable. He doesn't even have a James DeGale on his record. Arthur Abraham. You know what I'm saying? Even a George Groves. Where can we connect the dots to tie this into what he put on this clip and to say, yep, that's it right there. That's where it's at. Okay, that's it right there. Okay. That's it. You can't do it, brother. You can't.
Works like this. Let's say you're willing to fight for $500,000. Fighter A is a great fighter that you have to try for $500,000. Fighter B is a fighter you'll beat easily for $500,000. Who you choose to fight lets the people know what you're made of.
Who you choose to fight, let the people know what you're made of. So wouldn't a lower tier fighter who's fought lesser opposition show his fans what he's willing to accept and what he's not made of? How can you validate that Jaron Ennis is a great fighter if he hasn't been in the ring with the top tier competition to show you what he's made of on that level? It's okay for Crawford to have to be forced by everyone to say, oh, he hasn't fought nobody. He hasn't fought nobody. He ain't fought nobody. He ain't fought nobody. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about former world champions, Olympians, and all this shit, right? He ain't fought nobody. He ain't fought nobody. And then when he fight a common opponent, they drowned it out, convoluted with criticism, and say it was nothing because he made those somebodies look like nobodies. But yet, Jaron Ennis haven't even made a somebody look like nobody. He's busy fighting nobodies. So he's quite acclimated to the nobodies that's around, and Showbiz just skim over it. He just ignore it and say, I'm not even going to talk about the nobodies. I'm just going to say he's a great fighter. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to say he's a great fighter, without him actually fighting competitions that's equal to greater the level of competitiveness and skill set as Terrence Crawford. Who's on his resume that someone can extract and say, yep, Terrence Crawford had trouble with him. Crawford had trouble with that. Crawford had trouble with no one. So why would Crawford even look in the mirror except to, check himself out before he go on about his business? He's not sitting up there having a self-reflection, Showbiz. He's not sitting up here questioning himself just because he listened to this trash ass clip you put out. Let me get to the chat right quick. That shit is wild. I wish everyone will stop this bullshit about Boots being the best fighter for Bud to fight. They only saying this bullshit because Bud beat the shit out of Arrow, and that's a fact. You have a good point, man, a solid point. Unfortunately, when you're a fighter in this era that they love to hate, you find out truly how selfish, these so-called hardcore boxing fans are. Because they're not really, fans that's up here creating content or even studying or looking at fight film. These are casual fans who love to be a part of a conversation that's full of drama, gossip, and excites them. You know what I'm saying? Excites them to be a part of it. They can sit behind a freaking handle and talk about nonsense without even really paying attention to the fighters, who the fighters have fought, and the caliber of fighters that they've fought. You know what I'm saying? They want to go off what everybody else is talking about. Your Boots is popular. To who? To who exactly? Philly natives? Because he's not global yet. They're not calling for him outside of 47. I mean, it's only so much clout chasing you can do. If you truly wanted to prove to the people that you wanted that Crawford fight, ask the IBF not to strip him. Because you would have ended up fighting him fair and square for the title. You would have wanted that respect, right? You would have wanted that badge of honor, Jaron Ennis, by stepping in the ring with Crawford after he demolished freaking Spence. But you didn't want to step in the ring with him. Showbiz, no, you didn't want to step in the ring with him. That's why he's trying to exacerbate who you are as a fighter right now. That's all. He's trying to absolutely exacerbate all of it. He's trying to jack the price up. Another wild thing in this scenario is that you deemed that Terrence would get paid $500,000 for Jaron Ennis Boots and get paid $500,000 for Chris Eubanks. And in fact, in the reality, if Jaron Ennis was just this fighter that you say he is, a great fighter, he wouldn't be coming in no $500,000. He'd be over $1 million because he'd be stepping in there with Crawford. First of all, if Crawford is fighting Jaron Ennis for a measly $500,000, that totally debunks this entire video. Because there's no way you're going to say Chris Eubanks is fighter B and he's lower tier and he's getting paid the same for Crawford to fight Eubanks or freaking Jaron Ennis, and you're trying to say he's picking and choosing which one he want to fight for $500,000. No, the value of the fighters per your freaking clip that you put out, Showbiz, you're pretty much saying they are valued the same monetarily. Their purses are the same, 500, 500. But what you try to separate it at is that you got a lower tier fighter like Chris Eubanks Jr. who's getting paid $500,000, and he's lost to lower opposition. Here it is, Jaron Ennis, who you deeming a great fighter. This is your word, Showbiz. He's a great fighter, and he's getting paid $500,000 just like Chris Eubanks. You can't make this shit up because you said it out your own freaking mouth. A lot of people might see it this way, but Boots have problems with his next fight that is coming up. Hey man, I'm looking at it, man. Go in there and prove When they leave, I go back to just being myself. But when I have to really elevate and break some shit down, I can dip them in the hot grease. It's not that difficult for me. Because you're gonna put both of these fighters at 500,000 when you're saying one is great. A great fighter is not gonna be making the same purse as a fighter that you can deem who fought lesser competition, who's a lower tier fighter. That he's gonna have to seek his fanboys for validation if he beats Eubanks, who you deem the B fighter. Makes no sense at all. Makes no sense at all. You're trying to say Crawford is going to fight Eubanks for 500,000 rather than Jaron Ennis, and both of the purses are the same, and he can fight Jaron Ennis for a 3-time undisputed for 500,000, but he's gonna go over here and fight Eubanks, a lower tier opposition with no belts, for 500 grand. How is he losing? How is he losing? He's already solidified Hall of Famer. His hand's already been casted. How's he even losing? How does the scenario even make sense to give them both a $500,000 ticket for both fighters, but you say one is deemed to be great and one isn't? So how in the hell this fighter over here who's deemed lower tier in Chris Eubanks gets a 500,000 tag to fight Crawford, who y'all say is not a ticket seller? How can Crawford get him 500,000 if he ain't fought nobody, if his resume is mediocre to subpar? How does that work? How does he get 500,000 and the greater fighter over here, who Showbizz deemed the great fighter, who Crawford will have to try, he will have to put out more effort to fight? Why is he getting such a low purse if Eubanks is getting the same purse? Why isn't, if he's a great fighter, he's getting over $1 million? Because Crawford is a 2-time undisputed. He's a 3-weight world champion. To Jaron Ennis is just a single division world champion. Eubanks has been multi-time interim champion and a British champion. He still has more accolades than Jaron Ennis. But somehow, some way, between the cracks and crevices, maybe you all can figure it out that's listening in. How can a fighter B, who's deemed a lower tier fighter, an easier fighter by Showbizz, have 500,000 purse to his name? I thought when you are a lower tier fighter and you haven't proven yourself, you don't get paid the same as a fighter number A. I thought that's how that worked, right? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I thought that's how that works. How can an A fighter be in the same pay bracket as a B fighter? Per the evidence that Showbizz was trying to sprinkle, I think it was angel dust, he was trying to sprinkle on his listeners to make them believe that fighter A and B are getting paid the same, but yet they separate when it comes to achievements. Tell me how that works. Shout out to Andrew on that. Show me how that shit works. Because I know there's some scholars in the chat. The hottest chat in the MF and game. Show me. Don't come in here talking about my views. Talk about the mouthpiece. Talk about the words that's coming out my mouth, Showbizz. Please explain to how can an A fighter have a purse the same as a B fighter? But yet you're deeming the A fighter a greater fighter than fighter B to step in the ring with Crawford, to justify him having an IBF title who he didn't fight anyone for, but yet he submitted administrative documentation, they being the sanctioning body, to get him a belt he never fought for. So in reality, I guess you're trying to sell a dream. You're trying to sell a dream. Because if Jaron Ennis' purse is 500 and Eubanks' purse is 500, then you're basically saying they're pretty much on the same level. There's no separation. You're pretty much saying in so many words that Jaron Ennis is on the same level as the B fighter when it comes to his value in the sport. He's getting paid 500 grand. Eubanks is getting paid 500 grand. What separates Jaron Ennis, who is deemed to be a great fighter by Showbizz, the adult? Nothing. Because all you doing is shitting on Crawford. You're trying to say Crawford have to look for his fanboys. Crawford has to do this and that and the other. That has nothing to do with explaining how can you say 500 grand over here to a great fighter that Crawford will have to try. So if you think, check this out, Showbiz. Let's just say that if you believe that, why don't you put a video out asking Jaron Ennis, do he believe that? Do he believe in this clip that you put out? If you're saying that he's more greater than Chris Eubanks Jr. right now, ask him, do he believe that this clip make any sense? That if he was indeed in the position, let's just say in a fantasy world, that he was actually on that cloud that you're putting him on, would the numbers be the same there, Showbiz? Nah. The numbers won't be the same, Showbiz. You know that. You absolutely know that. The numbers would not be the same, brother. The numbers will not be the same. Eubanks will not be getting paid the same as Jaron Ennis if Jaron Ennis had the freaking paperwork, the body of work, the boxing ledger, the competition. If he had all the evidence to substantiate that he's a great fighter you say he is, how in the hell you can be a great fighter and the first world title that you get, you received via administrative paperwork, admin, logistics? How, Showbiz? It don't make any sense, brother. None at all. The way it looks, he might not have the IBF much longer. Look, OG, I'm not going to downplay his next fight with Cody Crawley. I want to see a good fight. I don't have no hate towards Jaron Ennis. But when you're basically a person that can be very descriptive with your words, people still treat it as if you're hating on them. That's because they're not willing to just sit down and they don't have to sit down. They're not willing to be patient enough to digest without bias what you're saying. A lot of people cannot just have a dialogue or present their narrative without using a whole lot of vulgarity and go on a profanity tirade. All I'm saying is that's him. That's what Showbiz put out. I don't have no problem with Showbiz. I have a problem with his clip that he put out, and he is the host. He is the voice behind the trash on that clip. You're trying to say, of all people that have gotten it and has been on record, there's Showbiz. Crawford has said he has been on record, has happened to prove himself his entire life. You think he would have got to where he's at if he had to turn around and ask all those who don't have the same goals that he have, the same drive that he has, his friends that he knew or whatever? You think he would have been where he's at now if he had to always seek validation from those who are behind him, those who are supporting him? He's not trying to catch up with them. He's already in the lead because he is the fighter. He has to go about this journey. He has to have a certain distinct motivation and hunger to go up here and be different than the average boxer. He has to separate himself from that. So him achieving all these championships, winning all these divisions, and becoming the first fighter to be a two-division, undisputed world champion, undisputed. It says everything you need to know. So it's very, very disrespectful, no matter how long you've been on YouTube, that Showbiz, to place him in the same conversation with a person who's willing to sit back and wait for the freaking mailman to show up and say, hello, a package for Mr. Ennis? Yeah. Junior, yeah. Boots, here you go, buddy. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, man, that briefcase looks very nice. But gonna have Eubanks seeing that pink elephant. Hey, man, I hope it's a good fight. You know what I'm saying? I've seen Eubanks in person. You know what I'm saying? I've seen him on several occasions. I'm not too favorable of the guy. You know what I'm saying? But he's a dude, man. He's a boxer. You know what I'm saying? We're not friends. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure Crawford will go in there and seek validation from himself and his team. You know what I'm saying? I'm pretty sure he's going to go in there and show out. Moving up 2 divisions too. Putting out these pictures of him in shape, in great shape. Come on, bro. Come on, man. Eubanks has been up there at 168 previously, right? Something like that. Hopefully he makes the weight. Showbizz up there talking about fight Eubanks, and he don't have any titles and he's lost to lower opposition. That's false. Yeah, it may be true that he don't have a title, but in reality, what good is it for Jaron Ennis to have a title if they're gonna just put an asterisk on the way you receive the title, and then that trickled down to Crawford and how he basically recouped his title that he never lost from Jaron Ennis. So when the conversation come up when Crawford is long gone from the sport of boxing, they're gonna bring this shit up. Say, well, hey, I was back there then. I'm telling you, I was much younger then. But this is one thing I remember about that time period. I know there was a lot of fight fans that was wanting Crawford to fight Ennis. And it happened. He fought Ennis and he did him something bad. And he re-earned his title. And I know they say he's a 3 division, the first to be a 2 division undisputed, the first to be a 3 division undisputed. But let me tell you, I give minimal to no credit on how he picked up that 3-time undisputed, because that guy Ennis, you looked at his resume back then, he hasn't fought nobody. So it was pretty easy going into the fight knowing that Crawford had more experience. He's a much better fighter. So when he finally, sealed the deal and he came 3-time undisputed, people wasn't jumping up and down. They just was crying out. They was just going off a hope and a dream that Ennis can show us something different, and he didn't. Look, they're not going to give Crawford optimum credit for taking his belt back from a fighter who never beat him for it in the beginning. Come on, bro. Shout out to the OG Bruce Gas Boxing Jazz some more, man. What's good? Salute to you, brother. Shout out to the news shot by Shot News Sauce Experience on deck. Team Tucker official in the building. What's good with it, man? Fire live today, man. Y'all definitely go check out my guy Shot News, man. One of the hottest on deck. Make sure y'all check him out and support his channel, man. He said all the Spence YTC boxing channels still are stuck on July 29th. They need someone to beat Crawford. Boots Ennis is their new Spence. Say it ain't so. Y'all say it ain't so. Say it ain't so, man. I hope, Jaron Ennis, that you don't listen to my words and feel any type of way. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not personal. But what you should feel some type of way about there, Ennis, is those sneaky, betraying down the worst fan base in boxing, Errol Spence fans trying to sneak and get in your shadows, you know what I'm saying, and your dark places in the gym. When you see them over there with them beady eyes blinking in the dark, sitting up there trying to act like they're your fan there, Ennis, but they aren't. They just trying to goddamn ride your wave and be in your company from afar. That's all. That's all, Ennis. And you know what? When you want them to talk about you, Ennis, so when your name pop up in the algorithm, you know what I'm saying, and it become, like Crawford, when you can barely put the CR in there and Crawford pops up, understand one thing. There's no way that can happen when they still talking about Crawford. You got to switch it up there, Boots. You have to identify these infiltrators, these border jumpers. You have to identify them there, Ennis, and say, listen, if you're going to come over here and support me, you need to support me. I don't want to look online and see y'all talking about Crawford. Talk about me. Get my name out there, not Crawford. Miguel, what's good? I don't think Boots will ever made 500,000 in any of his fights. You know what I'm saying? Why even, if you say he's great, OG, why put him with the same purse tag as a fighter B that you're considering not to be on the same level of fighter A? I can't make this shit up, bro. I can only dip him in the hot grease and cook him. You know, I'm just saying, how would you even put out a scenario like that? Well, 500. But with fighter A, you're going to have to try. You're going to have to make sure you go in there and have, you know, put forth your best effort. And fighter B, you can beat that guy with no titles. You know what I'm saying? Nothing to gain. And that's 500,000. Huh? Now, if you look, I don't even want to go off based off the scenario what I think. If it was flip-flop, that Crawford is the one who's fighting these guys for 500,000. Because see, I don't want for this clip to become an embarrassment. That's why I use the fighters' boots and freaking Eubanks and their purse being 500. Because there's no way in the devil's den that Crawford would be fighting Jaron Ennis for 500,000 or freaking Eubanks for 500,000. If Crawford's getting 500,000, what are they getting? 10 grand? Showbizz be putting more than 2 sugars in his car. Man, damn, Carlos, dog. Man, what the hell they have to do with the topic? Oh, that shit was hilarious. Hey, I don't have no problem with Showbizz, bro. I just have a problem with this freaking clip. You know what I'm saying? That's why I wanted people to hear it. Let's finish it out. Let's finish it.
In boxing are advised to fight fighter B, who you can look good against for the same amount of money. So then when they choose fighter B, they still want to be given their respect though, because they know in their heart when they look in the mirror that they avoided fighter A. So they rely on their fanboys to have their back no matter what.
So you see how I switched that up? I put it out the way it's supposed to be put out with the 500 grand. There's no way I would have sit up here and remediated what he was talking about, because it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. You know, you look at the subliminal shots people take. How can you sit up here and say that Crawford will even negotiate or be a fighter of that stature that fight these guys for 500 grand? Then not only that, he's fighting both of these fighters for 500 grand, but he's making a more extreme choice not to fight Jaron Ennis for 500 grand because he's a great fighter and he has to try. So for 500 grand, he's going to fight the B fighter. But how in the F is the B fighter worth 500 grand for Crawford to fight? There's no way Crawford, off what he's achieved, you're going to say he's going to fight Eubanks and get paid 500 grand and Ennis 500 grand? So they must be the same caliber fighter. I mean, somebody somehow need to be fired, whoever put this up in front of your face. Because I knew what angle I was going to take. I put the angle out there as both fighters being worth 500 grand. There's no way you're going to have me up here talking as if Crawford is going to fight both of these fighters for 500 grand. No. That means they getting paid nothing. What's supposed to be a 50-50 fight, you going to tell me? You're going to say Crawford's fighting them for 500 grand, a fighter? And what is the A fighter getting? 400 grand? What is Ennis going to get fighting Crawford? 450 grand? It's going to be a 50-50 split? Then we have to go into how did you come up with that disaster? Now we have to come up like, come on, bro. You can't be serious. That's why I took the angle I did. You must have been talking about what the fighters are worth. Because there's no way in hell that you thought I was going to look at that and say, well, Crawford, I can fight Jaron Ennis for 500 grand, the fighter A, or I can fight Eubanks, fighter B for 500 grand. No, I'm going to fight fighter B for 500 grand, not fighter A, because fighter A is a great fighter, and I will have to try to fight that. No. Crawford is asking himself, why is fighter A even in this scenario? If he's looking in the fucking mirror, he don't want to say, you know what, you stupid. Because you didn't ask the question on why fighter A is even in the equation. Now you have to look over here to fighter B. Yeah, he may not have no title, but he has a better resume. So to close this out, Showbiz, fighter B is the one who won in this whole scenario. Because just the fact that fighter A couldn't negotiate a higher purse with Crawford, he couldn't negotiate. Crawford is fighting for 500 grand. Fighter A is supposed to be great, but Crawford's only getting 500 grand for Boots. But also he's getting 500 grand over here for a fighter who you say has lost the lower tier opposition to lesser opposition now. And he doesn't have a belt. But he's getting, look, Crawford's able to get 500 grand, the same as fighter A. No sense at all. Trash.
Everybody know you should have fought fighter A. Fighter A, Boots, will make him 3-time undisputed. Chris Eubank has no belts. Got whipped by lesser fighters, don't deserve the fight. Boots does though. He was mandatory, #1 contender at welterweight, has an IBF title, that was vacated to him.
I'm off that because he said that Eubanks don't deserve the title. But yet, I didn't see him do a video talking about Rolly don't deserve to go in there and fight for the 140-pound super lightweight title. I didn't hear a video of you talking about Sebastian Fundora, who was stopped by Mendoza, who's going in there and fighting for the WBC championship after coming off a knockout. I didn't hear a video where you saying fighter A and B when it comes to Jermell Charlo going up from 54 to 68 and fighting Canelo Alvarez. I didn't hear none of that. Bud made a man have cataract surgery while dismantling the entire boxing promotion. Bud has PBC still looking for partner. Man, you know, hey, PBC, man. And the church mouse, man. You know what I'm saying? And then I say to myself, if a church mouse is so quiet, how was it ever discovered? Did the church mouse get caught running across the motherfucking platform? I don't know. The people already know that Bud is made what Bud is made of. No doubt, man. If you look at it, Bud would have been fighting Boots next since the rematch is not happening with Arrow if he didn't pull. That's what I'm saying. Look, once this shit went down, he removed his enforcement. His enforcement would have that now the Arrow's out the window, boom, Boots, you're up next. You're up next. But you know what? This is how they planned it. They knew Errol Spence wasn't going to be able to fight. They wasn't going to be able to fight because the money wasn't there. And plus, they want to put him up there to cataract. So he was going to be out. They knew that. But they wanted to make sure to jump ahead of time and get that belt so they wouldn't be forced. Because if you was going to become the mandatory, if you was going to become the mandatory for Crawford, you better damn well be ready to take that freaking fight. You can't come up here and say, oh, well, man, you know, Boots got an injury. They didn't want to go through that. They didn't want to go fight for that belt, man, and put that one on that record. They did not want that smoke, man. How about an update on Mr. Ennis? Vietnam boxing promotion. Hey, man, yeah, if y'all have an update, let's hear it. You know what I'm saying? Because he does have that lawsuit out there. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he should have put that up there about fighter A. You know what I'm saying? Maybe he should have put that up there. Better business decisions. I hate to say this, but Showbiz may be a low-key Crawford hater. Look, you know, you got plenty of individuals that don't like Crawford. And I don't really look at each whoever they may be, because first of all, I don't know who they are. I just know where I can find them. And where I can find them, I mean, they always have their location. Most of them resides right here in the freaking sewer system, of the YTC freaking boxing media. You can always find them scurrying around. You know what I'm saying? But when freaking Crawford exterminated, there was a lot of casualties. And that's why you don't see the same amount of people that was here before. You don't see them. They was eradicated. Slowly but surely, they trying to come back on the scene. They had to wait for the poison to wear off. You know what I'm saying? That's why they trying to goddamn sneak and peek around Team Ennis. But that's not going to work because he's not going to be fighting Crawford anytime soon. It's going to be fighter B. It's going to be fighter B. Why should Ennis fight Thurman? I mean, at least Thurman fought the champions. You know what I'm saying? At least he fought the champions. Right? I'm just saying, at least he fought the champions. Thurman, we need to just be talking about him stepping in there with Zoo. A fighter who actually, people know that'll go in there and give you a good contest. That's who we waiting on. But when it's all said and done, right? I just suggest respectfully that when you hear fast talkers out here saying certain things, understand that I broke it down differently the way I deemed it to make more sense. And that's the fighters being worth 500 grand. Because there's no way that you can disrespect Crawford and think that he's going to be fighting fighter A for 500 grand or fighter B. This whole scenario is absolutely trash. Because if the fighter A was great, he wouldn't be fighting him for 500 grand. You feel me? Crawford's status, fighting Jerron Ennis for 500 grand is senseless. It's foolish. And then to say, okay, if I'm fighting Jerron Ennis for 500 grand, fighter A, why am I fighting fighter B for 500 grand? Showbizz say they're not the same fighter. Fighter A is a great fighter, and Crawford's got to try a bit more harder to win that fight. But yet, Crawford's going to fight him for 500 grand. It makes no sense. You're trying to say he's trying to take the easy way out, but yet they both valued the same price. It makes no sense at all. It makes no sense at all, bro. You're trying to say they're in boxing terms, they're worth the same value. But when it comes to the paperwork, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to the boxing ledger, their FICO scores are different. That don't make any sense. If their FICO scores are different, but yet 500 grand goes for both of them, for Crawford. No, even for freaking Jerron Ennis being worth 500 grand and Eubanks, it still don't make no fucking sense. So I gave you the first scenario, which would make more sense to me, and then I zipped it up with the second scenario, that if Crawford was fighting fighter A or B for 500 grand, no one can deem one fighter better than the other due to their purse. And then if you don't see it that way, you have to explain to the people, why would you even put it in the scenario for 500 grand? Crawford is not going to fight no freaking fighter that's an A and B fighter for 500 grand. He himself is not worth that. He's made millions. And then to put fanboys in it and seek validation, that was some hating ass shit, dog. That was a hating ass shit. I know you was saying a lot of crazy stuff before July 29th hit last year. And then you try to come on here and crack some jokes and everything like that about Errol Spence and this, that, and the other. Bro, I get it, man. I get what your MO is. I ain't mad at you. Entertain and do, but all I wanted to do is come in here and try to provide you with two scenarios, bro, that included the 500 grand. But absolutely, I tried to re-explain it so it can be better understood by the listeners, So they can kind of get a little bit confused as to what you meant by Jaron Ennis being a great fighter. Is it a new type of prerequisite that you have to be deemed great without the accolades? Can anybody present that documentation to me? It might be somewhere that I haven't looked yet. It might be in the caves, and you might have to dig it up. I don't know. But can somebody shoot me that information where you deem a fighter great and he hasn't fought a great fighter? Equal to great fighter. Equal to great fighter. Somebody, pound for pound list. Something. Korean Shooting, was he pound for pound? Ramon Villa, was he pound for pound? Sergey Lipin, was he on the pound for pound? Were they sitting high in the rankings? Custio Clayton, Euroball. I don't know, bro. JD, what's good? But man, y'all hold it down. Continue to support the channel. Shout out to the hottest chat in the MF and game, A-Side Official. Appreciate y'all for pulling up. Until next time, I'm out. Peace.